Welcome to those of you who have joined us from around the world for Good Mood Food. My name is Lisa Sakos. I am the presenter today. We're just going to give people about 15 or 30 more seconds to sign into the webinar today, and then we will get started. For those of you who are already here, I'm going to keep my chat box open throughout the entire presentation today. So please feel free to enter your burning questions, or if you have any comments you'd like to make about something that I just said, perhaps you have your own advice or a method that works for you or that you've heard about, please go ahead and enter your comment, question, remark into the chat box. I'll do my best to keep an eye on it. It's on another screen, so if you see my eyes darting back and forth, that's why, because I'm checking it out. And we can have a conversation. And there will be some time for Q&A at the very end of the session. Okay, I think we're ready to go. We've got Heather Creamer on the call as well, and she will be letting more participants in as the seminar progresses. My name is Lisa Sakos. I am a natural nutrition coach with the Health Coach Collaborative, as is Heather Creamer, and our third partner, Lynne, is not with us today. She is in Europe working on the business part of our program. And today's topic is just in time for the holidays because it is such a fun time of year. It's lively, it's colorful, it's fun driving around at night with all the beautiful lights, and the homes are decorated, and it's busy, and we're socializing, but at the same time it's unbelievably stressful. The expense, the full schedule, just trying to remember every last minute detail to make sure that you're absolutely prepared. Whether you celebrate Christmas or not, it doesn't matter. It's hectic. It's a hectic time and a very expensive time for all of us. And then there's the parties and the food. And normally this time of year, my most popular seminar is the healthy holiday eating, because we're all trying to prevent that weight gain that usually comes with the holidays this time of year. But we're not going to be talking about that today. Today, we're going to be talking about stress and managing stress and some coping mechanisms that we can derive from our food. Good mood food. It is one of my favorite topics, and we can use this information, of course, all year round, not just today. Now, please remember that this information does not replace medical advice, even though I will be talking about some dietary supplements and some herbs and potentially some other strategies, products that can be incorporated into your lifestyle, diet. Please make sure, if you have a condition, if you're taking medication, that you run it by your doctor first to make sure that there aren't any contraindications, as there may be even with natural products. Okay, so what causes a bad mood? Well, there are a multitude of reasons, and I'd love to hear from you if you'd like to suggest what causes your bad mood, or if you're working with clients, what have you heard from them? I would say one of the most common reasons is blood glucose going up and down, and I can tell you so many stories. We could be here all day talking about stories, but one of my very favorite stories had to do with a client that I had very early on in my practice. She came to my door. She knocked on my door, at my house. She wasn't even a client. She was just a random person knocking on my door. And when I opened the door, this tiny little woman was standing there saying to me,
We've lost volume. Can you hear me?
"Yeah,
Oh,
there I am.
there we go.
Sorry. Okay. Hangry. Yes. Okay, so we'll get back to where I was. I'm sorry about that. I don't know how that happened. So this tiny little woman shows up at my front door complaining about her mood, and said that she thinks it might have something to do with her diet. So I invited her into my house and we had a little chat. And as it turned out, she already at 85, 90 pounds. So, eating disorder. But before that, I started asking her questions about the way that she ate throughout the day. And in her effort to keep her weight down, she ate her breakfast, and then for the rest of the day, she would eat a chocolate bar for lunch. Now, this was coming off of a Weight Watchers program. What she was doing at Weight Watchers in the first place is beyond me, but she was on Weight Watchers, and her assessment, this was again a long time ago, about 20 years ago now, what she got out of that was that as long as she maintained a certain calorie range, that she could eat whatever she wants. So 1,000 calories in salads and fruits and vegetables and whole grains and natural foods, or $1,000 in chocolate bars. It was all the same to her. So we had a nice long conversation about blood sugar. Anyways, I ended up working with her, and within a month, her colleagues were asking her if she was on a new medication, because rather than this all day long, her mood was much more stable and she was much more positive. And overall, she ended up achieving all of the results she wanted while incorporating a good diet. So blood glucose, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. When you eat glucose or carbohydrates, you feel fantastic. A couple of hours later, after it's been digested, if it's a refined carb especially, your blood sugar drops and you don't feel so fantastic anymore. And that's where we get into the hangry, which we're going to talk about. Thank you, Heather, for that comment. Okay, hormones. All right, people, we know how much our hormones can affect our mood, right? I say this all the time, that there are some days, especially, related to my menstrual cycle, when I just want to yell at everybody and I'm mad at the world and I don't even know why. And then I wake up the next day and everything is normal again. And I can't even remember why I was so upset the previous day. So hormones can take over, and they can be, they could take over to the point where we have virtually no control over them, even despite our best intentions. All right, then there's, of course, socialization, our programming. I hear this so often from clients, that their father had a terrible temper, or their mother had a terrible temper, and would throw things, would throw dishes across the room, or would yell. Or, again, for those of us who have background in nutrition, as soon as we hear this, we think, okay, adrenals, right? Your adrenals are just stressed and overworked when you are just flying off the handle like that. But poor coping skills are passed down. Our parents passed them down to us. They received they learned coping skills from their parents, and so on and so on, until we change those patterns. So those can be changed, thankfully, with effort, obviously. And then, of course, there's serotonin and low dopamine as well, neurotransmitters, brain chemicals that affect our moment to moment behavior and the way we think. So we will address many of these today. And if you have any others, then please go ahead and enter them into the chat box, especially if I've missed them. And I love this quote from Virginia Woolf: one cannot think well, love well, or sleep well if one has not dined well. And that's why we're here today. Okay, so let's talk about serotonin, because serotonin is, as we know, nature's feel-good neurotransmitter. And we throw this word around, serotonin, and I mean, the SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, are one of the most prescribed drugs across the planet. It is quite shocking how many people are taking SSRIs. Again, going back now about 15 years ago, I was the nutrition director at a chain of fitness clubs. And one of the first location I was at, I saw, I don't know, maybe 100 clients a day. It was just one after the other. And I could not believe how many people were taking SSRIs. So I started documenting just in my own notes, just to keep some stats, and come up with a plan for that particular group, for this the patrons of this particular club. And about 49% of the clients that I had at this club were taking SSRIs. It's shocking. Okay, so we make our own serotonin. And up until about, I don't know, 15 years ago, it was thought that our serotonin was made by the brain. After all, it is a neurotransmitter. Now we know that 95% of serotonin is actually produced in the gut, which means that we have enormous control over the gut microbes. We can change gut microbes, albeit temporarily. It's very difficult, maybe impossible, to make permanent changes in the gut. So again, it's a day-to-day effort, but we can make changes in the gut that can boost up our serotonin levels and put us in a better mood. Now, the neurotransmitter is associated with sleep, calm, reducing anxiety, controlling appetite, helping to regulate good digestion. And of course, it influences our mood. It puts us in a calm, more positive, happier mood. Now, what's interesting is when the high protein diet came back in vogue, remember it was really popular back in the 70s when the Atkins diet first came out, and then it was gone for a while, and then it came back in the 90s. One of the comments that I used to hear a lot from people was that when they started the high protein, very low carbohydrate diet, is that they lost their sense of humor. Interestingly, that could be because without the carbohydrates in our diet and the foods that produce serotonin in our bodies, we don't make neurotransmitters that keep us light and happy, right? We're very serious, very focused. And high protein diet will do that. Now, you might be thinking, well, isn't L-tryptophan one of the precursors to serotonin? And L-tryptophan is found in turkey, which is an animal food. It's a protein food. Yes, absolutely. But it's not just the tryptophan in the turkey that puts us in that good mood and also in that sleep coma on the couch an hour after Thanksgiving dinner. It's the tryptophan plus all the carbs, because you need that insulin to get the L-tryptophan conversion into serotonin in once it travels across the blood-brain barrier. So we're going to talk about this a little bit more in a few minutes. So it's not just the turkey, it's the turkey plus all the fixins, plus the apple pie and all the carbs and all the other stuff that we eat, right? Okay, yes, I will repeat all of this in a couple of minutes, Coach Dorothy. So just hang on tight. This is sort of still the introduction. Okay, so let's talk about the food swing, right? This is the combination of hungry and angry. And oh my goodness, before I understood nutrition, before when I was struggling with my weight and I was trying to get fit again many years ago, I experienced this on a regular basis. So just from my own experience, and this is what our clients experience as well. You know, good breakfast, feel fantastic. Lunch comes 3 hours later, so there's not too much of a space in between. So you have a good lunch, but then about 3 hours later, especially if it's a light lunch, right? Like a half a sandwich and a soup, or a soup and salad, which digests so fast and it's gone in virtually no time, suddenly your blood sugar starts to drop. And around 3, 4 o'clock, our serotonin levels drop and our blood sugar is dropping. And suddenly we find we get irritable. We're so hungry. You're so hungry, you can eat your hand. No one's looking for chicken salad at that time. What do you need? You need carbs, right? And that's your sign. When you're at the point where you need to eat and you need carbs, that's your body telling you that your glucose has crashed, that it's time to eat. So as practitioners, our goal is to try and stabilize our clients' blood glucose levels so that they don't experience these ups and downs, because when our blood sugar is low, our mood changes and it can happen very fast. We become irritable. We can't concentrate. Some of us feel lightheaded, unfocused. Of course, it's very difficult to work and to focus on your work in the middle of the day when you're experiencing this. So does anyone have a suggestion for what you can do when you're already in this state? Some maintain a low carb diet. Okay. If you have any comments, now, of course, you want to eat something, right? So you want to eat something when you're in this state. And ideally, it would be something with protein in it to boost up your, well, I mean, protein and carbs, the combination of protein and carbs to boost up your blood glucose and also stabilize your blood sugar. But if you're finding that it's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon that you're having these food swings, then make sure that your lunch is substantial and that there's at least 20 grams of protein with your lunch to help carry you through the afternoon. And I say this to my clients all the time. If you notice that around, 3 o'clock, you are having this pattern on a regular basis, have a little snack, mostly a protein snack, if you can remember to do that, before your blood sugar crashes. Okay, so question here, why not fat to slow digestion? Absolutely. And I always say to my clients, lunch should be your biggest meal of the day. You know, we make dinner the biggest meal of the day because it's convenient, right? Like we've worked all day. We haven't had time to prepare a nice big meal, but at the end of the day, you've shut down your computer and now you can be in your kitchen for as long as you want, cutting and chopping and cooking and preparing a nice big meal. But that's not when we need all the nutrients. We need nutrients early in the day to be able to work and concentrate and be in a positive mood and be a kind person and associate with other people in a pleasant way. Not so much at the end of the day when we're just going to eat and then sit on the couch watching Netflix, right? So let's try and flip that around. So the more you can eat at lunchtime, and if lunch can be a combination of protein and carbs and fat, that should carry you through, and that will go a long way in balancing blood sugar levels. Okay. Oh, okay. So comment here, lots of people are fasting. Yes, that's a whole other story. Now, I'm totally for intermittent fasting. I think if it fits a person's lifestyle, then they should absolutely do it. Now, I have to say though, a little anecdote here, an observation that I've made over the past 2 years since the pandemic, because the pandemic changed the way a lot of people eat. You know, when before the pandemic, we had a routine. People would go to work, they would have their breakfast, lunch, dinner. Intermittent fasting became really popular during the pandemic. And also because people were working from home, they would kind of have a later breakfast. So they'd eat around 11 or so, and then they'd snack, and then they'd have a big dinner. And I saw this with the vast majority of my clients. All my clients, by the way, are corporate. I work in the corporate world doing one-on-one nutrition presentations for people who basically work, 9 to 5 or 8 to 5. So I saw this pattern a lot. But then when they started going back to work, they maintained the late breakfast. So what they did was what they're doing, skipping breakfast, having lunch, and then having again a big dinner. But they're skipping breakfast, but they're still having a coffee with milk, or a big, Starbucks fancy coffee with whipped cream, or something like a juice, and they're calling it intermittent fasting. And it's like, that's not fasting, that's just skipping breakfast, because you're still having calories with that coffee. You're still having calories and macronutrients when you put milk in your coffee. So that is not intermittent fasting. So I find there's a lot of misinformation. And if you are working with clients, that's something you're going to want to clarify with them when you're going over their diet. Okay, so intermittent fasting is actually a very effective way to help balance blood sugar if you are doing it properly, but that's a whole other story. So we can chat about that a little bit more later. Okay, so I like to take the approach, and I have to say, I've been in this industry now for about almost 26 years, and I have to say, I've been pretty good at predicting what's coming next. Okay, and nutrition is very, very trendy, right? Just like clothing and interior decor and everything else in this world. Nutrition and diet trends, that's why they're called trends. My prediction is that the next big trend is going to be intermittent fasting, but not the way that we're doing it now. Right now, the skipping breakfast is going to switch to skipping dinner. Again, I could be wrong about this, but this is what I see coming down the pike. I see that we're going to move to a shift to having a big breakfast, big lunch, and then skipping dinner, and then having another big breakfast the following day. Now, it's the same thing. You're still doing that 16-8 eating window. However, I've always recommended this formula for people who are trying to manage their weight, to get their metabolism in check, because I find that when you, well, first of all, there's so many reasons. And those of you who have studied metabolic balance, I'd love to hear from you as well. For digestion, digestion is the strongest earlier in the day. So you can digest a big breakfast, you can digest a big lunch, but by the end of the day, you're tired, your body's tired, you've used up all your good enzymes. There's not a lot left to deal with the biggest meal of the day. So this has not made any logical sense to me. I mean, obviously, this is what our lifestyle can accommodate, right? So we can't always argue with that, but I'll recommend to clients that if they would like to do it this way, is to have your big breakfast, big lunch, make dinner, but maybe have a very small portion and save a much bigger portion for lunch the next day. That way, your lunch is already done. You can still have your biggest meal of the day and enjoy what you prepared the night before. And that's better for digestion. It's better as far as the nutrients that we require to work and function throughout the day and stay in a positive mood. It's better for our blood sugar, and it's also better for our waistline if we're trying to keep our weight down and body fat down. All right, so as far as balancing blood sugar levels, same idea. Start your day with protein. Now, if you're intermittent fasting, then absolutely go for a bigger lunch with your 20 to 25 grams of protein. Now, the older you are, the bigger you are, the taller you are, the more protein you're going to want to have. At my age now, I went from 20 grams of protein to almost 30 grams of protein for breakfast, which is a lot. I never thought I'd be eating 30 grams of protein for breakfast, but oh my goodness, it makes a very big difference. And if I have less than 20 grams of protein a day now, I really feel it throughout the day. I'm craving sugar a little bit in the middle of the day. I'm more nippish, like I want to eat, I want to snack versus when I have a much bigger, more substantial breakfast with that protein. That protein is key. It's not just enough to eat a certain amount of calories or a certain amount of grams of food. You need that protein there. And protein needs to be the star of every single meal of the day. So you want to do your macros, figure out how much protein you need throughout the day, and then divide that protein into your 3 big meals a day or 2 if you're fasting, and then make sure you're having protein with every single snack of the day as well if you are a snacker. Now, this means we can't have carbs by themselves anymore. It means that a pasta dinner with just a little sprinkling of cheese and grilled veggies and garlic bread, that's not going to cut it. That's mainly carbohydrate. That's going to cause your blood sugar to go up, and then your blood sugar is going to go right back down. So we need to balance our blood glucose with that amount of protein in every meal. Now, if you're looking at 130, 140 grams of protein a day, as some of you are, that's a lot of protein. So you're looking at, say 30, 60, 90 in each meal, plus splitting up your protein among your snacks. So that means snacking on a banana in the middle of the afternoon? Nope, that's not enough. You want a banana with, say, a handful of walnuts or some almonds or some Greek yogurt or leftover chicken. It doesn't matter, just needs to be there. A protein shake is fantastic. Pick up a protein powder. It could be a vegan protein powder or whey protein or whatever your preference is, no problem. Read the nutrition facts panel because every protein powder is different, and some will have more protein than others. Some will have more bioavailable protein than others. Some have more carbs than others. There are different protein powders for different needs. So if you are incorporating protein powder, make sure that your powder has low carbs. There are some that have high carbs, and I like to recommend these to the 17-year-olds who want to gain weight overall, and they also want to gain muscle. So high carbs and high protein, that's suitable for them. For the rest of us who are trying to balance our blood glucose, we're probably getting enough carbs as it is. So look for one that has 20 to 25 grams of protein per scoop and lower carbs. And then, of course, it needs to be clean. That applies to everything. People ask me all the time, well, isn't a protein powder a processed food? You know what? Yes and no. It is. Whey. Okay, so let's take whey as an example. When you open a container of yogurt, that liquid that's floating at the top, that's the whey protein. So you don't want to pour that down the sink as some people do. You want to make sure that you can stir that in there because that is the most important part of the yogurt. Now, that is pretty natural, except for the other garbage that they throw in there. So you can find clean formulas that are just basically protein. Sometimes they put in some digestive enzymes. Sometimes they put in a sweetener of some kind. So be really careful with those sweeteners. You want to make sure you don't have any artificial sweeteners. You want to make sure you don't have any sugar in there, right? Because that's going to boost the carbs right up there. Okay, let's move on from that. So protein is the most important thing here. Fiber is also important for regulating your blood sugar and, of course, your mood. Now, your fiber is an easy one, right? Take all the white stuff out of your diet, white bread, white rice, white pasta, refined cereals, and replacing it with whole grains. You can also add in some fiber from ground flax seeds or chia or psyllium or whatever you prefer. Again, And then, of course, get rid of those liquid calories. Those are like such a problem across the world now, but especially in North America. Those sugary sodas, those fruit juices, we don't need that garbage in our lives. And really, if you look at the timeline of how obesity became what it is today and how our diet became more processed, it was really the introduction of these sugary drinks that probably pushed us over that edge and into what our metabolism is doing today. So get rid of that. Okay, so another good mood food that has to do with the gut. Speaking of fiber, I didn't mention this, but fiber is really, really critical for feeding the good bacteria in the gut. Our ancestors ate well over 100 grams of fiber a day. Some researchers suggest in certain parts of the world, even 150 grams of fiber a day. Can you imagine? Now, that's a long time ago, and I don't even know what would happen if we tried to eat 150 grams of fiber today. I don't know if there's a toilet big enough to deal with all of that. However, we do need more fiber than what most of us are consuming nowadays. Now, the average Canadian and American consumes only, does anybody know? Before I move on, does anybody want to write it in the chat? What do you think? All right, I'm just going to say 13 grams of fiber a day. 13 compared to 150, that's a really big difference. So our bodies are not designed to ingest only 13 grams of fiber a day. We're meant to be consuming a lot more. And part of the reason we need fiber, that not too many people are talking about yet, is to feed the intestinal microbes that live in the gut microbiome. Those little guys are hungry. They want to eat, and they do feed on everything that we feed them. But many of the strains in the gut are very reliant on fiber. And if they don't get the fiber that they need to stay alive, to do their whatever functions they're assigned to do, they start attacking our gut lining and they begin eating through the gut lining. And this contributes, it's one of the many contributors to leaky gut and leaky gut syndrome, which again, that's a whole other webinar. But that is a major problem that many of us, most of us, as a matter of fact, are dealing with in trying to repair right now. Okay, so aside from the fiber, the microbes that live in our gut microbiome, there are over 1,000 strains living in there right now. And there are all kinds of different microbes. Most of them are bacteria, some are fungi, some are yeasts, and some are good and some are bad. Now, interestingly, what's good for you, maybe not so good for another person, but it's not so much the types of strains that are in there, but the percentage and the ratios. So the goal is to try and get as much good bacteria and reduce the amount of bad bacteria, because the unhealthy strains that are living in the microbiome can cause a host of bad stuff happening in your body: autoimmune issues, allergies, sensitivities, eczema, psoriasis, brain fog. And we've actually learned a lot about this even since the pandemic and the research that's come out of the pandemic. So one thing that I mentioned earlier is that 95% of the serotonin that is produced in our body is made by the activity of certain strains that live in the gut microbiome. So that is very interesting, because if what we eat influences what's living in there, then we can control our microbiome via our food choices. And this is exciting. Now, as a matter of fact, it is so influential that there is a whole new type of medicine coming out of this information. And the psychiatrists are learning about how to use specific microbes to treat mental illness. And this has been coined psychobiotics. So we have probiotics and antibiotics. Psychobiotics are particular strains that can influence the production of neurotransmitters and could potentially have positive effects on on mental illness. So what does that mean in the future? Now we're nowhere near using this as a substitute for pharmaceuticals at this point, but in the future, it could mean that certain probiotic strains can be used in conjunction with pharmaceuticals to treat mental illness, or in some cases, instead of instead of pharmaceutical drugs. Now, this is a long way away, as I said, and also what science is learning is that because each person is different, the prescription will be specific to each person. So with AI, we're going to get closer to this, and it could happen sooner than later. But I think this is a very exciting field of medicine that we should all stay tuned into. But for those of us who are just trying to eat a regular diet and keep our microbiome healthy, what this means is that the more probiotics that we can include in our diet, the more positive our mood can potentially be. So, where do we even start with this? Well, the probably the most popular probiotics across the world are yogurt, or found in yogurt, or Greek yogurt. Now, I like Greek yogurt because it has 3 times more protein than regular yogurt. So if you're still a regular yogurt eater, I would recommend switching to Greek yogurt just for the probiotic. Pardon me, just for the protein. I think the probiotics are probably the same, but where you're going to get more probiotics from a dairy product, a fermented dairy product, is from kefir. Now, there are, oh, I should have brought the cultured coconut down to my office. I'm sorry, I forgot. This is one version of kefir. This is a milk kefir. I have to say it's not the best, honestly. And this is sweetened. This is a strawberry flavor, so it does have some sugar in it. But right now, this is the only way my kids will drink kefir. I drink the plain kefir that's dairy based, and I also have something called coconut kefir, which has a completely different microbial profile than kefir derived from dairy products. Both of them are incredibly effective. And again, totally anecdotal story here, but I love to tell this story because this was a game changer for my family. And the reason why we have kefir in our house 365 days a year is because when my son was born, he's 11 now, but when he was born, he had a skin condition, and every winter he would get very, very severe eczema as soon as the temperatures dropped. So when we introduced kefir into our diet, he was about maybe 3 years old. And I noticed that within days, his eczema went away. Now, of course, I didn't make that relationship right away, but the following year, I noticed the same thing. His eczema came back like very bad. He started drinking kefir, and his eczema went away. Uh, one year, I forgot to buy it for a couple of months. Eczema, very bad, very, very bad. So it triggered me to go and get it. Within a week, his eczema was gone. So I know that his gut needs a lot of support. Now, he does get, of course, other types of probiotics, but there is something about the probiotics in the kefir that we buy that helps mitigate his symptoms. So comments here: sourdough, inflammation, sore joints. Yes. So if with too many carbs, yes, absolutely. And, we have to blame sugar for a lot of things. Sugar feeds the unhealthy microbes in the gut. This time of year, I've personally noticed, and I'm sure you can all relate to this. I've personally noticed with all the parties that have already happened. My birthday and Christmas are in the same month. So it's just party after party right now. And all the sugar has had a severe impact on my mood, I can feel my body chemistry changing. I can see the signs of inflammation. My skin is itchy. Like you, Coach Dorothy, my joints are a bit inflamed. I find when I'm sitting for a long time and I get up, my knees are a bit stiff, and I can blame 100% of these symptoms on the sugar. So as a result, just in the past little bit, I've introduced more probiotic sources, and it's already starting to regulate and feel better. So we cannot underestimate how powerful these are on our mood. And most health organizations around the world suggest that there's at least one probiotic source in your diet every single day. So it could be cultured foods like kimchi, sauerkraut, fermented vegetables. If you can't buy them, they're readily available now at most stores, Costco, most grocery stores. You can make it yourself. Loads of YouTube videos that teach you how to ferment vegetables, you just need some. I bet you there's veggies in your kitchen right now that you can easily ferment. You just need some clean water, 2 or 3 ingredients, some clean jars, and you're good to go. And then within a few days, all you need again is a forkful, maybe 2 forkfuls a day. But look at some of these sources: sourdough bread, chutneys. Now, let's talk about kombucha for a second, because I'm not a huge fan of kombucha. It is a oh my goodness, yeast and bacteria, and it's made with sweetened tea. The yeast consumes the sugar that's in the tea, and then you're left with a fermented product. You know, I've the majority of people that I've worked with have not had great results from kombucha. Some of them have had yeast infections as a result. Some of them have become, I hate to say this, but they're addicted to it. And I have to wonder if maybe part of that is the alcohol that's in there. So I'm not fond of using kombucha. I think once in a while it's a nice substitute for, like, say, a soft drink. If you like soft drinks and you're trying to get them out of your diet, it's a nice way to move away from those sweetened beverages. But as a reliable probiotic source, I would not recommend it, especially as your sole probiotic source. Okay, another amazing good mood food that we've known about since the late 1960s is omega-3. Okay, again, there's so much to unpack with this topic, but I'm going to keep it brief. First of all, when I was in school 25 years ago, we were learning about the essential fatty acids, and it was like omega-6 and omega-3, and we need both of these. At the time, it was thought that we needed them kind of in a 1-to-1 ratio. We've really moved away from that now, because we've recognized that there is far too much omega-6 in our diet, or in the average diet, and not nearly enough omega-3. So again, what I'm talking about here is similar to the probiotics. It's about proportions. So we want to boost up our omega-3 and have less omega-6 if possible. And it is possible, right? Where do we get omega-6 from? Nuts and seeds, breads, grains, beans. It's in a lot of the plant foods that we consume. Some of us are consuming it intentionally. We're taking flaxseed oil, or evening primrose oil, or hemp seed oil, thinking that this is important and helpful, and it really isn't. There are, of course, some clients who do benefit from those oils that I just mentioned, but for the vast majority, we really need to emphasize omega-3 and reduce all of the others. Now, I just want to mention omega-9 really briefly. Does anybody know what omega-9 is? Because you'll see that in omega-3, 6, 9 formulas. Omega-9 is olive oil. Do we need more of that? Do you need to pay extra for that? No. Pretty much everybody uses olive oil, or you have it in your house. So you don't need to pay extra money for olive oil. Stick to omega-3 and you'll be okay. Now, why do we want omega-3? All right. So we have known since, like I said, the late 60s, that omega-3 has a very impactful influence on behavior. So it's been studied over and over. A lot of the emphasis in the research over the past couple of decades has been on heart disease and omega-3, and those studies have kind of been back and forth for a few reasons. Part of the reason is because in the studies they were using very poor quality types of supplements. But as far as brain health goes, our brain is about 65% fat. So yes, we truly are fat heads. I had to say it. So what we want to do is put in the raw materials. We want to put in the raw materials by introducing more omega-3 into our diet. Our cell membranes are made of omega-3. Every single cell in the body has a membrane around it, and that membrane is critical for protecting each and every cell of your body. So you think about what's going on every second of the day. There's a nutrient transport. So your body's digesting, metabolizing, it's trying to get nutrients inside your cell. Your cells are making waste products that they need to get out. They want to get them out and travel through your lymphatic system and get them out of your body. So if we protect our cell membrane so that nutrients and waste products can get in and out uh, safely and easily, then the result should be healthy cells. But the types of fats that we eat can damage the cell membrane. Trans fats are the absolute worst. Now, governments are actively trying to get trans fats out of the human diet. So we're almost there. We're getting there slowly but surely. But also, too high omega-6 can also create inflammation throughout the body. So that's also quite damaging to our cells. So omega-3 not only protects our brain cells, but it also protects every single cell throughout the body. Okay, so as far as our mood, we have seen that low omega-3, especially a deficit in omega-3, can predispose certain people to psychological problems like depression and anxiety. Um, so the question is, did they already have depression and then they became low in omega-3, or were they low in omega-3 and then they had depression? We're still trying to work that out. Nonetheless, many of the studies have found that those with low mood disorders, depressive behavior have benefited from increasing the amount of omega-3 in the diet. And we also know that omega-3 does have a preventative impact. So for all of us, boost up your omega-3 fatty acids. Now, again, there aren't too many sources of omega-3. Oh, let's talk about this too before we move on to that. Studies over the years have shown less irritability. I love these studies. They're usually done within the prison system or in schools, high schools, elementary schools, and they found that when omega-3 was introduced, there were fewer fights in the prisons. There was less aggression in schools, students towards one another, students towards their teachers. Also, children, school age, like elementary school age children, their reading improved, their math skills improved, their retention improved, and this all happened very, very quickly. And for seniors, introduction of omega-3 can boost neurocognitive functioning. So for every one of us, now there's two types of omega-3, DHA and EPA. And typically you hear that it's DHA that's more important for brain health, but newer research is suggesting that we actually need both. Now, part of the reason for this is because EPA has a more impactful role in reducing inflammation, and so much inflammation can occur in the brain. So we do need both to balance each other out. So let's see, I'm just looking at, okay, some comments. I think we're good. All right, so food sources of omega-3, most of you know cold water fatty fish, so sardines, yum, anchovies, salmon. Okay, we can live with that one, right? But there's also trout. Trout is such a good one. Tuna has about half the amount of omega-3 as the same size serving of salmon. Salmon, unfortunately, is one of the most contaminated fish, right? It's high in PCBs and it's very hard to get clean salmon. If you can find organic salmon, that is a much better option. Usually you're looking at paying double. So if you see it on sale, get as much as you can and stuff your freezer with it. If you can stock it, then at least you've got some. Tinned salmon is typically less contaminated than salmon fillets. So that's a really cost-effective way to consume a cleaner version of salmon. Put anchovies on your pizza or on your sandwiches. My husband just likes opening up a can of sardines and he'll just eat. I can't do that, but he enjoys doing that. So absolutely good for him. Now, krill oil is the vegan version of omega-3. As a matter of fact, many of our sources of cold water fatty fish that we consume for omega-3, they eat krill oil and krill, pardon me. And krill provides omega-3. I did not mean that. Krill oil is not the vegan version. Sorry, I misspoke there. Oh my gosh, what is it called? Algal oil. Sorry, I didn't include that on this slide. Algal oil. So ALGAL. Algal oil is the vegan version. And that's what I meant to say is that the fish will eat the algae to get their omega-3. So you can go directly to that source and purchase the vegan algae or algal oil at the health food store if you're vegan or you choose to have a plant-based diet and you'd still like an omega-3 source that works just as well as the animal source. Okay, pasture raised meats. So yes, we're talking about free range cows. That is one of the things that we see most commonly with pasture raised meat over the factory farmed meats is that they have a much higher amount of omega-3, not just in the meat, but also in their byproducts like their milk and eggs, etc. If we're talking about poultry. Walnuts, flax oil, kale. Now, these have omega-3, but they also have omega-6. So again, just keep that in mind. We still want to keep our omega-3 up. And then, of course, there are the omega-3 supplements that you can buy in capsule form or in bottle liquid form. Now, I just want to make a couple of points here because if you're taking it in capsule form in a bottle like this is very well protected from the sun. So you don't want light streaming through your bottle of omega-3. Omega-3, just like all fats, all unsaturated fats or polyunsaturated fats, they are very sensitive to light, heat, and air. Oxygen. Light, heat, and oxygen will damage our fats. So if you have a bottle of omega-3 oil, please make sure that you keep that lid sealed. You keep it in a dark place in your refrigerator and only open it up to pour your omega-3 and put it right back as quickly as you can. You don't want to leave it sitting on the counter for a long stretch of time. Otherwise, it'll start to break down and turn rancid. With the capsules, I want a container like this or a dark container like this that's protected from the sun. However, if you're buying your omega-3 at like Costco or at certain pharmacies or grocery stores, you will probably buy it in a clear bottle where you have clear capsules and there's fluorescent lights just streaming through that bottle all day long. Plus, it is a synthetic version of omega-3, not a natural version that finally, the research is starting to recognize that it is not even nearly as effective as the natural version. So in this case, you are better going with the natural source of omega-3, like eating fish whenever you can. But if you're going to take a supplement, as long as you take a high quality natural supplement of omega-3, you're looking at about 1,000 milligrams a day to protect your brain health, to improve your mood, and also to reduce inflammation throughout your body. All right, now my very, very favorite supplement in general, but especially for improving mood. Everybody wants a quick fix. This is the quickest of the fixes of all. And this is the B vitamins. There are 8 B vitamins. They work as a family. They are a team. You can buy them all separately. You can go into the grocery store and buy B1 thiamine, B2 riboflavin, B3 niacin. Folic acid is so commonly prescribed for different things like heart disease and to prevent neural tube defects, etc. You know what? Skip all of that. You want to find a B complex, one supplement, one bottle that provides all 8 of the B vitamins because they like to work as a team. Each of them has a different function. I like to think of them as, Snow White and her dwarfs, her 7 dwarfs. Like each of them has a unique function. All of them work together to metabolize carbohydrates, fats, proteins. All of them work together to boost our nervous system functioning. They help reduce our stress levels, reduce anxiety, put us in a better mood, help us sleep at night, help fight depression, help prevent dementia. I'm just listing these off the top of my head. There are so many things that the B vitamins do in our body to protect our brain health and moment to moment to improve our mood. So what are you going to see if you've never taken B vitamins before and you start taking B vitamins. Okay, first of all, let's talk about the food sources, because we always want to go for the food sources first, right? Here it is. So we've got whole grains. Now, here's the thing. B vitamins are water soluble. So when you have a whole grain, are you eating it raw? No. Oatmeal, you're probably going to cook it unless you do overnight oats, right? Overnight oats will protect the B vitamins. But if you're cooking your oatmeal, when you bake bread, any other grains, quinoa, like any other grains, you're going to destroy the B vitamins because they are water soluble, and water soluble vitamins are very sensitive to, like fats, light and heat and air, but especially heat. So the other major source of B vitamins is dark leafy greens. So spinach is an excellent source, romaine lettuce, arugula, kale, these are all great sources. But in order to get the B vitamins from these dark leafy greens, you need to buy the big, the head of lettuce. And just before you're going to eat them, wash them and chop them up and eat them within a few minutes. So if you're buying the big containers of the clamshells of lettuce, all of, yes, you're getting some, but you're not getting the maximum amount. So when you're under stress, like we are at this time of year, when you have a lot of pressure, a lot of deadlines, anxiety, that's not going to cut it. And that's when we want to pull out the big guns. And that's when we want to turn to a B complex supplement. So here's how you take the B vitamins. Again, you want them all 8 vitamins in one capsule. So the one that I happen to have right now is called B Calm. I don't have shares in this company. I don't get kickbacks. I don't have an affiliate agreement or anything with them. This is just the one that I happen to use. So first, another thing too is one capsule. You want to use a capsule. You don't want to use a tablet. Tablets are really hard to break down. And this is emergencies. When we're taking B vitamin, it's an emergency situation. So we want it to be absorbable and we want it to work fast. So a B vitamin capsule with breakfast or lunch if you're intermittent fasting. Breakfast or lunch, no later than that, because if you take it later on in the day, is going to stimulate your energy levels and you may not be able to sleep well at night. It may reduce the quality of your sleep. So the earlier, the better. And you are going to see that within an hour, your urine turns fluorescent yellow, like a highlighter, right? Think of that color, highlighter yellow. That's a good sign. It's telling you that your body has now absorbed the vitamins and that it is circulating through your bloodstream and having an effect on your mood. You also should notice that you are more focused, more positive, a little bit happier because it makes dopamine and serotonin a little more energized because B6, B12, they boost up your energy levels a little bit. You should be able to sleep better at night as long as you've taken it early enough in the day, and you're just calmer. I've seen miracles in people who went from a terrible diet to even just taking a B vitamin. And it's like they're able to step outside of this like circus that they're living in and see things clearly. When Neo was in the Matrix and he like was able to sit up in where was he, in the subway tunnels, and he saw the pattern and suddenly it all came to light. That's how I feel like the B vitamins work in some people, where just suddenly things make sense. So you don't need to take them every single day, maybe just when you're working, when you're feeling stressed. You don't need them on the weekends if you're relaxed. When you're going on vacation, you don't need them. But also here, this is one where if you are taking pharmaceuticals for anxiety or mental health, please make sure you check with your doctor first, because there are potential contraindications with the B complex. Okay, so I love the B complex so much. Did I miss something here? Oh yeah, so B12 helps fight depression, stress formula, B12 early in the day with food, dark leafy greens and whole grains. Okay, so let's talk about B12 specifically, because I know that people always have this question, well, I just take B12. B12 is one of the 8. It's not enough. Yes, it has many, many functions within your nervous system. And sometimes when you have a client who's complaining about tingling and nervous, just numbness, not nervous, sorry, numbness and tingling in their arms or legs, ask if they're on statins, first of all. But if they're not, it's potentially a problem with their B12. Another symptom, if you ask them to stick out their tongue, if they have bite marks along the side of their tongue or their tongue is inflamed and purple, those are potentially signs of low B12. Low B12 is very dangerous. In fact, it's deadly. It can lead to pernicious anemia, which is like a shredding of part of your nervous system. That's a terrible condition, and that can happen actually quite quickly for someone who's very deficient in B12. Um, Now, B12 is found in animal foods, so we see B12 deficiency in vegans, but most vegans know to take supplements. However, we also see B12 deficiency in lots of non-vegans because their stomach has to produce intrinsic factor to bind to B12, carry it into the intestines where it is then absorbed. And if their digestion is very poor, like maybe they're taking antacids regularly or proton pump inhibitors, or they have some other digestive issue, low hydrochloric acid, they're not making intrinsic factor. So most of the clients that I've had with B12 deficiency are heavy meat eaters. So this is something you want to explore with clients. Okay, so moving on to vitamin D, and we'll wrap it up in a couple of minutes. Vitamin D is a nutrient that we hear about so often as associated with mood. And there are some questions because we know that there's a very strong link between vitamin D and depression. But the question is, again, like I said with omega-3, what was there first? Was the depression there first and then they became low in vitamin D, or did they develop depression partly because of low vitamin D? And does vitamin D improve their symptoms? Does it prevent their symptoms? Does it alter their symptoms? We're still trying to answer these questions, but there is enough evidence that suggests that yes, all of this is true because there are receptors for vitamin D all throughout the brain. So that is important information, which means that the brain it receives chemical signals from vitamin D. Now, of course, we know that we get vitamin D from sun exposure, and still, we douse ourselves with sunscreen and sunglasses, and we don't allow for any sun exposure. But to get that vitamin D, you just need to expose a patch of skin for about 10 minutes in good strong sun. Now, in many parts of the world, the sun is just not strong enough right now to get that vitamin D. Even on a sunny day, it's just not enough. So for those of us who live in cooler climates that lack sun exposure, we want to make sure that we're supplementing with vitamin D. And we want to get, at least one dose a day. You don't want to overdo it because it's still a fat soluble vitamin. But so many of my clients have noticed a big improvement in their mood when they introduce some vitamin D supplements, which are very fast acting. Now, of course, you can get a blood test to determine what your vitamin D status is, and almost everybody's going to be deficient because the expectation is very, very high, but still we can all make our best effort, right? So aside from taking a supplement daily or every other day, here are some good sources of vitamin D, D3 actually, sockeye salmon, cod liver oil. Now, cod liver oil also has vitamin A in it, and it has a lot of omega-3 in it. So this is actually a really, really good option to take in the winter if you live in a colder climate. However, just keep in mind that vitamin A is very, very high in cod liver oil, and it can be dangerous for some people. Trout, one of my favorite fish, so delicious. Milk is fortified with vitamin D, eggs, but the yolk. So if you're skipping out on the yolk, you're skipping out on the vitamin D too. And then if you want vitamin D2, you're going to eat mushrooms. So I've noticed that some grocery stores now and health food stores actually have refrigerators where they're growing mushrooms for the vitamin D, which is so cool. So yeah, so good varied sources here, and it is something that we definitely want to include to boost up our mood. Okay, and then tryptophan. Now we're ending where we started. We started talking about serotonin, the feel-good brain chemical, as it's known, right? And we know that there is an amino acid that's found in most foods known as tryptophan or L-tryptophan. And tryptophan makes serotonin. It is the precursor to serotonin and also norepinephrine and dopamine. So these are all feel good brain chemicals, but tryptophan is the one that we have the most information about. And we know that if our tryptophan is low, which tends to happen on January 2nd after all the holiday festivities are over and we're over winter. There's a lack of sunlight. There's a lack of things to look forward to. So many people around the world get SAD, seasonal affective disorder, as a result of the lack of sunlight. And as a result, I hear my clients start saying, well, like around February, I can't stop eating carbs. I can't stop eating pasta. I need to eat more sugar, because we're looking for foods with tryptophan that will boost our serotonin levels. So yes, these foods do boost serotonin, but they also cause weight gain and a lot of other problems in the body with blood sugar, etc. So let's try some healthier versions of tryptophan. So spirulina, oh my gosh, such an amazing supplement. If you haven't tried it, if you come across it, give it a go. Just try it early in the day. It's one of the most energizing things I've ever put into my body. And I don't think I slept for a couple of nights the first time I tried spirulina. So be careful with that one. Turkey and chicken, uh, fish, dairy products, and eggs. So those animal proteins, of course, animal protein foods have lots of tryptophan. And then we have our nuts and seeds, some soy products. Make sure you buy organic, non-GMO, beans and lentils, and then our whole grains. And if you have some of those animal food sources combined with the carbohydrates, that will ensure that that tryptophan gets across the blood-brain barrier to make serotonin. Okay. Finally, caffeine, a couple of sources of caffeine here. Now, I'm certainly not recommending that if you don't drink coffee, that you do drink coffee, but I just want to mention that caffeine from coffee specifically will boost dopamine and makes you feel better. And I love coffee. I only have, one in the morning and a small one in the afternoon. But I do notice that whenever I decide to stop drinking coffee for a stretch of time, I don't feel as happy as I do when I drink coffee. It is a treat. I love it. I look forward to it every day. Obviously, if you have a sensitivity to coffee or if it's causing you anxiety, please do not introduce it to your diet. But if you're curious about why you feel so good when you drink coffee, it's because of the dopamine that coffee will cause production of in your brain. Now, theanine in green tea is a whole other story. Green tea is the exclusive source of this concentration of L-theanine. And what it does is it boosts up your brain function without overstimulating your body like coffee does. So one of my favorite studies that I heard about many years ago was about two groups of people, subjects who did a typing test. And the group that drank coffee first, I'll wrap it up in a second, Heather. The group that drank the coffee, they had more typing errors versus the group that consumed did I say ate? Drank green tea. They typed equally as quickly as the group that consumed the coffee, but with fewer typing errors and more accuracy. So it will speed up your cognitive abilities without speeding up your body so that you can still sleep soundly. So if you are burning the midnight oil and you need to be able to focus, then green tea is your friend here. Okay, and then the last thing I want to talk about, actually, there's a couple more, but I have to wrap it up because I think you guys all have to get back to your lives. Gluten is something that I want you to think about when you are dealing with a bad mood or you have a client who is having angry outbursts, especially, or changes in behavior, changes in mood throughout the day. Now, I have seen this countless times with clients where they have breakfast and they're pretty stable, like a protein shake or some eggs, but then they have a sandwich at lunch. And suddenly an hour later, even 20 minutes later, they're very different. It's like a different person has taken over their body. Their handwriting changes. They become angry. It's nothing to do with glucose. It's the effect of the inflammation in your brain as a result of gluten. So in this case, you may want to consider a gluten-free diet temporarily for these people just to see if it makes a difference. And if we had more time, I have so many interesting stories that just supports this notion that trying because gluten we always associate it with gut health and problems in the gut, but sometimes it affects our brain. In fact, about 30% of the time it's impacting our brain. Now, not all of these people will have celiac disease. Some of them will. Others are just experiencing an inflammatory effect from including gluten in their diet. And then, okay, this is for real finally. I see the last slide is coming up next. Dark chocolate. Now, we know that dark chocolate makes us feel better, and there are some very valid reasons why, because it has flavonoids, antioxidants that can boost our health, but it also has caffeine-like molecules called anandamides that can create a state of euphoria. So it stimulates, like you see here on the slide, stimulates parts of the brain associated with pleasure and reward. So we don't need a lot of chocolate. Sometimes it is hard to stop, but 2 or 3 squares of chocolate will have this effect, which will boost up our mood, make us feel better. Sometimes we're low in magnesium, and that's why we are craving chocolate. So keep that in mind too, especially women close to their menstrual cycle might notice this. But for the rest of us, it is a quick mood booster. Just keep in mind you want to get a chocolate with low cocoa content. Okay, I mean, sorry, high cocoa content, sorry, 60% and up, and low sugar content. That's what I meant to say. Okay, so that's it. This presentation is available to you. So this is just a review of all the information that we talked about today. And I just wanted to say that I am so grateful that you were able to join us today. It's such a busy time of year. I hope that you got a little bit of inspiration, that you picked up a few tidbits that are useful today. There is much, 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 much more in our Natural Nutrition Coach program. I am one of the writers of the courses, and myself and Heather and Lynn and our program teaches all this information and so much more. So if you're interested in checking it out, our URL is up on the screen there, healthcoachcertificates.com. Anyways, I'm so grateful for all of you for attending. Thank you so much. I wish you all a very happy holiday and all the best in 2024. Now, I'm going to stick around. So if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves or type your questions into the chat box. And if not, I hope that our paths will cross again sometime in the future. All right. Take care, everyone.